Our story resumes as Kala continues to care for baby Tarzan, which, by the way, means white skin in the anthropoid language. She wonders to herself why his development is so stunted compared to the other baby apes in her tribe. They can all walk long before he can and can swing from branches with ease, while Tarzan just can't. Kala tries to get advice from the older mamas, but none of them can understand why he's so helpless. Baby anthropoids can walk, swing from branches, and forage within the first 3 months on average, where baby humans can't even walk until they're a little over a year old. And I don't know about babies you've been around, but I definitely wouldn't count on any of them pulling off any sweet vine swinging or having survival skills. Kala's mate, Tublat, suggests that they should leave the sleeping baby in the grass to die, because he'll never be anything other than a burden. But Kala tells him to go suck bread, and that she'll carry Tarzan around forever if she has to. Tublat appeals to Kerchak to try and get him to force Kala to give up her baby, but Kala threatens to run away from the tribe if they don't leave her be with her sweet adopted bean. Because she's young and healthy, they don't want to lose her as a member of the tribe and let her continue caring for baby Tarzan. And it pays off 10 years later when Tarzan can climb and swing with the best of them. And even though he's not as big and strong as other anthropoids his age, he's way smarter and more cunning. The anthropoids of the same age were already considered fully grown, but Tarzan's still just a boy. Keeping up with the anthropoids trained him to be able to spring 20 feet between treetops and stick a landing from just as big a distance. Thanks to all the physical training, at 10 years old, Tarzan had the strength of your average 30-year-old man and was more agile than most athletes. And he was only getting stronger. He was happy, despite never knowing or considering that there was a life beyond his jungle and big anthropoid family. But when he started feeling the deep sting of sunburn, he also gets hit with the deep sting of being different. It was the first time he realized that he was hairless and likens himself to a lowly reptile. At one point, he tries to cover himself with mud to fit in with his furry friends, but it's uncomfortable, dries, and falls off. He ends up deciding to deal with the discomfort of being different over the discomfort of the mud. On that note, I'd like to stop here and point out that this is a really great message overall. Even though he's so young, and everyone else his age is literally an adult and looks totally different, he'd rather just be himself. For all he knows, he's got some disease that makes him small, hairless, and slows his development down. But he'd rather accept himself for who he is, rather than pretend that it's not the reality of the situation. For all he knows, he's the only person in the world like him, and he accepts what makes him unique, rather than desperately trying to be the same as everyone else. That's pretty awesome in my book, and it's a lesson to take to heart for sure. But that self-acceptance was soon shaken up again, as one day, Tarzan and a young cousin of his happen upon a watering hole in the summer. While taking a drink, Tarzan is able to see his reflection. It's here that he sees just how different he really looks. His teeth are squared off and don't feature the strong fangs of his cousins. His eyes feature prominent white sclera and were a light gray color compared to his cousin's dark eyes, and his mouth and nose were so small, it's a wonder they were useful at all. He was so distracted by his alien features, he didn't notice Sabor, the lioness, creeping up on him. She roars loudly when she attacks, knowing that the anthropoids freeze in place at the sound. But Tarzan reacts differently than his cousin and quickly makes the decision to dive into the water before him. Tarzan doesn't know how to swim and is afraid of water after experiencing torrential storms and having watched one of his tribe members drown, but an impromptu swimming lesson is preferable to being lunch, so he takes a dive. Thankfully, he fumbles his way into a doggy paddle and sees Sabor waiting over his cousin's dead body for him to come back to shore. Tarzan calls out for help while also trying to warn his tribe of the danger on the bank. Kala comes swinging to her baby boy's rescue with 40 to 50 members of their tribe behind her. Sabor bounds away from trouble, and although we don't find out how they take the loss of the other little one, we do find out that Tarzan has taken a liking to swimming and continues to do it every day. On the long marches through their territory, Tarzan sleeps in Kala's arms at night, and the author takes the opportunity again to remind us how their bond transcends their differences. I should point out that Kala is referred to here as a, quote, fierce brute of another race, end quote, which could be taken by some to be racist. Since it's been made clear that the anthropoids are different than humans and are something more akin to human ancestors, I'd say it's fair to refer to them as another race without it being equated to an ethnicity. I see the anthropoids as a race the same way that you would see elves in fantasy and aliens in sci-fi as other races too. So, halfway through recording, I found out from researching outside the books that the author later calls the anthropoids Mangani. I don't recall reading that in the first or the second books, so that's why I've been calling them anthropoids this whole time. So, from now on, when I refer to them as Mangani, know that that's why. Now back to the story. Kala is never cruel to Tarzan and resorts to kind lectures over yelling. Her mate Tublat hates Tarzan and nearly kills him, but that doesn't stop our young jungle boy from sassing back at the grumpy Mangani whenever he can. Through finding new and creative ways to bother Tublat, Tarzan learns how to tie grass into ropes to trip him with and tries to catch him in snares, leaving him to hang from trees. Eventually, he teaches some of the younger apes how to make their own ropes and snares and learns how to lasso while playing with them. Kala tries to punish him, Tublat threatens him with more violence, and Kerchak threatens to exile him, but this doesn't stop the little scamp from harassing his foster-poid papa with the makeshift rope whenever he could. In doing so, he starts to wonder how effective it would be on other jungle predators, but that doesn't happen until later. Whenever the tribe happens upon his parents' cottage, Tarzan makes every effort to try to get inside, but the fortifications made by his papa make it impossible to even get a good gander at what's in there. But not long after his swimming lesson, he finally figures out that the door of the cabin might be his best bet to getting inside. He's alone when he makes this realization, as he usually is whenever he investigates the cabin, since the Mangani don't exactly have the best memories of the place. Because the Mangani seem to have a short memory and limited vocabulary, they never include the fact that the cabin's former inhabitants were Tarzan's parents, and he has no knowledge of its connection to him. And even though Kala did tell him that his father had been a strange white ape, she never told him that she wasn't his real mother. It isn't explained why at this point. This could even be because she doesn't remember his real mother. After testing combinations of the lock, latch, and door, he finally cracks the case and goes cautiously inside when his eyes adjust to the light. He finds the skeletal remains of his parents and Kala's baby, but he doesn't pay them much mind. Life in the jungle was filled with life and death. The author notes that even if he had realized the identities of the remains, it wouldn't have made him feel much differently. Jungle living made this boy cold as ice. He takes a look around and carefully examines whatever he can. He finds a knife and plays with it for a while, which is a no-no for all you kids out there. He even cuts himself a little bit. See? What did I tell you? When he gets bored with that, he finds some books. He focuses his attention on an illustrated children's book about the alphabet, and here is the first time he sees apes with faces that look like his. He also recognizes other animals from the jungle, but doesn't see any Mangani pictured. After flipping through the pages, he switches his focus to the letters and words. Like the pictures, he tries to pick at them and thinks they might be bugs. The Mangani don't use written language, nor do they, according to the author, have any words that apply to it or the pictures. He reads until it's too dark to see the letters and leaves the cabin with the knife after storing the book and makes sure to lock the door behind him. As he walks back into the jungle, a large form rises before him. At first, he thinks it's a member of his tribe, but he soon realizes it's one of the only creatures in the jungle that strikes fear into the hearts of his people. A gorilla! I touched on the differences between Mangani and gorillas in my last video, so check it out if you need a refresher. Finding himself in a similar situation to the one his father was in at the beginning of the book, the Jungle Boy realizes that he can't run past the big baddie and stands to fight. Thanks to being raised by his Mangani family, fear doesn't overtake Tarzan, and he collides in battle with the beast. During the first moments of the fray, Tarzan accidentally manages to stab the gorilla, causing it to yell out in pain, and he realizes this might be the only way he stands a chance against his enemy. As the gorilla continues to assault Tarzan with open palm strikes and tears at him with huge fangs, Tarzan keeps stabbing the creature as much as he can. Unfortunately, bloodied and battered, Tarzan falls unconscious during the fight and rolls into the jungle from the beach. A mile away, Kerchak calls the tribe together, fearing an attack from a group of gorillas after hearing the one who challenges Tarzan so close by. In doing so, the tribe realizes that Tarzan is missing, but before that can even be confirmed, Kala's already rushing off in the direction of the gorilla to search for her beloved baby boy. As she approaches, she hears the gorilla's dying breaths, but not a sound that indicates what might have killed it. She finds the bodies of Tarzan and the gorilla and picks up her precious bundle to check for a heartbeat. Thankfully, he's still alive, and she takes him back to their tribe's nesting spot. She spends long days and nights taking care of him, keeping the flies away from his wounds. He was feverish and only wanted water for days. She fed it to him from her own mouth and licked his wounds to keep them clean. And yes, that sounds super gross to you and me, but animals do this regularly. I assume the immunity Tarzan built thanks to a life in the jungle must be why this type of thing didn't make his wounds or illness worse. But despite this seeming yucky, it shows us again that the bond between Kala and Tarzan is strong and loving. She cares and sacrifices for him in the way that any human mother would. At last, Tarzan comes around from his feverish delirium and doesn't even complain despite his injuries being so painful. The skin on his neck has been stripped away. He has 3 broken ribs, and his arm had nearly been cut clean in half by the gorilla's teeth. Even his jugular vein is exposed. At this point, Kala starts taking more time to get her health back up after barely eating or drinking while she took care of him, and he quietly keeps to himself while he heals. The Jungle Boy is no longer an energetic, mischievous kid, but a wounded animal. And that was chapters 5 and 6 of Tarzan of the Apes. Will he get his mojo back? Meh, probably, but you won't find out for sure unless you tune in next time. Thanks for watching!